Well, welcome back, Therapy Flow community. We're excited to chat today about a couple important mindset principles for growing your practice. We're going to go through three of them.
Yeah, three big ones. If you guys haven't caught the newsletter, uh, maybe make sure to subscribe. These newsletters go out every Thursday. Just Josh does a fantastic job with them, and we've got three big lessons. Lesson one: your best decisions may still be bad decisions.
I think when when we think about lessons, there are a lot of choices in life. I've got a 3-year-old right now, and I watch his little brain try and process things to do, things to make all the time. And it's quite often that he attempts to do something that he probably thinks is a great idea. Oh, let me help open the stove or move this pot, and it's super hot. And that's the best decision he could come up with. Or, hey, let me throw this ball as hard as I can because that sounds fun, but the downstream effects aren't super clear. I think sometimes as practice owners, as business owners, we can sit in a room, we can sit with a pen and paper, and we can do our best to process all of the information that's in front of us for our business. And we can come up with an idea, a plan, a process. We can use all of the available information, insight, knowledge we have, even consult with mentors or coaches or otherwise, and we can try and push forward with a decision or with a strategy. And it's only through execution, it's only through trying that the result comes back in and it didn't work. It actually turned out to be a bad decision for a host of reasons. We found out new information, or the market didn't want what we were selling. There's lots of places this happens. This happens in hiring all the time. You do your best. Hey, we saw this, this, and this in the interview, and we loved it. But a week in, 3 months in, it's like, oh no, this was very clearly a bad decision. And it doesn't mean it does mean it was a bad decision when you made the decision, but they look like good decisions in the time. There's a reason why they say hindsight is, 2020.
Yeah, hindsight is 2020, and sometimes it's not 2020. Sometimes it's
That's
not
true
so
too.
clear. um, I wanted to bring up a really quick definition. Uh, Many of us maybe have heard of this idea of chaos theory, and so it's basically a focus or a scientific study of a branch of mathematics that focuses on underlying patterns and deterministic laws of dynamic systems. So I bring that up because oftentimes in your practice building journey, you want it to behave not like a chaos or like a chaotic environment, but because there are so many inputs and so many factors, it ends up acting much more like a chaos theory type entity. Okay. Inside of chaos theory, there's all kinds of weird things that can happen. Like you guys have all heard the butterfly effect, right? Where one butterfly flaps its wings and a tornado can start in the other side of the world. So there's some weird end points that can happen. And I don't think that we ever really truly anticipate it to be like that. I think you just go out and you do your best, especially when you first start out. You're like, let me make a great logo. Let me think about my name for a long time. Let me do my absolute best with the amount of money that I have or the resources that I have access to or the skills I've developed. And you get certain outputs. Now, Jeff Bezos, whether you like him or not, he has a really interesting way um, where he helps or where what he has an interesting system that helps him make decisions, and it's called the regret mitigation formula. And it sounds exactly what it sounds like. um Try to minimize your regrets. Try to minimize your regrets. And so if you have decisions, it benefits you to move through those decisions quickly. So make decisions quickly as long as it's a reversible decision. So if it's a reversible decision, move through it quickly and just do it. Maybe do the thing that you might regret the least. Um,
Yeah.
and in that way, you'll make better decisions. And maybe you can just live with yourself a little bit better, even if you don't make a great decision the first run around.
Yeah. I think it, if I look at my own life, I think even earlier in business, I think there was some like emotional hangups or shame when my good decisions turned bad. It felt crappy for it not to just like fail or not work. In some ways you kind of expect not everything to work in business, but I think especially when you get attached to a really good like strategy or result or process that you're trying to move forward, and it just does not, you're like, this is right. It's that higher. There have been a couple people that I have hired since the start of my business where I'm like, I thought that was a great decision and I feel crappy about myself that didn't work out, right? That it was a bad decision and it was my fault somewhere along the process, right? Or things in that vein. And the more that happens, the deeper you go into business, the deeper you go into growing and scaling your practice, the more opportunities you're going to expose yourself and your organization to failure, to things that you are going to try and you're not going to quite get the result in full form or in partial form that you were hoping for. And your business will grow in direct proportion to how quickly you can name those feelings, process those, and then kind of get back to the thing that moves the business forward which is action. You're still left in a place where a solution has to be moved forward, even if the thing that you tried didn't work. And that's okay. And I just kind of want to name that. It's like, it's okay when that stuff doesn't play out the way that you want it to. And just know the only way through and up and out of that is to continue to work on the business.
Yeah, I might add one extra thing in here too. This goes for like vendors, this goes for service providers, this goes for all kinds of things. I mean, even drugs don't have 100% like action. So when you're looking at like, hey, my Psych Today profile is not working, but other people are telling me it works. And maybe you might feel like you're going crazy for trying to trying to make it work. Like make the best decision for yourself. Um, and some actions work because you didn't have maybe knowledge about how to make it work. Some actions don't or won't work because maybe you are the limit in some way. This is kind of like the difference between the same employee with two different managers performs differently. And so I would consider those elements as well because you have complete control over those elements. Um, and so I think that's a good segue into maybe lesson number two, which is that skill gap that
Yeah.
may exist here. And
I
so
think, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to give it first sentence cut.
It's important that we understand that often the reason why our good ideas fail is because our imagination often outstrips our potential or our skill in practice. It's the classic, you have a big beautiful drawing in your head, right? And you go to the paper and it turns out as, a squiggly stick figure and you're like, that is not what wanted. And the same thing happens in your business every single day. If I look at the very first website I designed to try and attract counselors to my organization versus our website today, which is also on its own improvement curve still, they are night and day difference. But at the time, I did the very best I could for launching and designing that first website. And there were some good components out of it, but it does not look nearly as nice. It's not as well written. There's, lots of stuff compared to today. But in between those two segments was probably like 70 to 100 website builds for my own companies or other things that I personally did, and hours and hours of execution in lots of other places that refined my skill, my palate, my taste, and that skill gap between what I wanted, what I knew was possible for my imagination, closed over time. And the only way to close that gap is through execution. And so sometimes good ideas they fail because we did our best. We swung we swung for the stands and we missed. And it doesn't mean the idea is faulty. Sometimes it actually just means our team or ourselves did not have the skill to bring it to fruition.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting one because you can have multiple skills to do the same thing or take different angles to approach the same type of problem.
Yeah.
So where some practice owners may have the raw skill and talent to like operationally manage and organize their organization, or take the intake calls and match with therapists and do some of those other things, especially when they're first starting. Some practice owners don't, but maybe they're really, really great recruiters and hirers and managers. And so um, it's really funny. We had a client just the other day that was like, guys, I really don't like doing the things that you need me to do in your program. And it was in her skill set, however, to hire and bring someone on and manage. And so that's what she did. So it was an option for her. That's what she did. She hired a new position, and all of a sudden everything's off of her plate and she's moving at lightning speed in her organization compared to, even just a week prior. And so things like that, um, you don't have to have the same skill, right? You don't have to learn how to play blackjack to make money at the casino. There's lots of other games at the casino that maybe you can try your hand at, right? So there's lots of different skills to get the end result. Um, Maybe just focus on the ones that you maybe have the most strengths for, and I think you might move a little bit faster in that big skill gap. And maybe also recognizing the fact that you don't have the skills, even if you think you do. I think one of the most toxic points in any business owner's relationship with their business is they think they have the skill to do something, but if it's not working the way that you want it to, you might not actually have that skill. And it's it's a sometimes it's a stark revelation when you're like, I've been working for 3 years at this thing, and I actually don't have the skill to do it after trying my best for 3 years. So
Yeah.
this was this was me back when I used to run my SEO agency at the very beginning of my business career. Probably for the first year and a half, I did not have the skills I thought I I knew I had, and so it was just it was a big ego check back then, but now it doesn't feel quite like that.
Yeah. This past summer, I took up watercolor painting. I'd done some other painting in the past. I can't say that I'm much of an artist. My paintings still look like stick figures one way or another, just more washed when I'm doing watercolors. But I started to try and paint some stuff, and it just wasn't going well. So then I looked up some basic fundamental, just like skills. And one was like, oh, how to do like a faded wash with watercolor. Like, oh, it makes sense that you would need to know how to do that if I want an image to look like this, but it's just I've never slowed down and practiced that. You mentioned, Attilio, a couple things there. Hiring the correct person, interviewing and hiring and onboarding someone successfully is a section of skills. Managing them for the first 90 days versus the next couple of years, that requires a different skill set for success. Just like building a funnel or building a website requires a different skill set for you to do it versus successfully choosing, managing, and getting a project to the finish line with a vendor that's doing that for you. So sometimes you just have to ask yourself, which skill am I missing that is not undergirding the rest of the strategy that I'm trying to run here. It's like maybe I'm just really bad at interviewing and hiring the correct people. And you could be a great manager, or vice versa. Maybe you're a terrible manager of people, but you hired the right people, but they leave you or they underperform the minute they start with you. I think a lot of times that happens when I do sales coaching inside of our organization for our therapy practices is they hire a great admin, but the scaffolding, the management that's given to them daily, weekly, monthly is just not there. And there's some really simple things to put in place to manage an admin really effectively. So just ask yourself, which skill am I missing? And how can you close that gap? So what you want to achieve, that you imagine that you want to achieve, is actually possible. And that kind of brings us to the last lesson. Your business, if you're always trying to grow it, will consistently be hard more often than not. If you are trying to push your practice into a place that it's never been before, that probably means you, your team, your product, your organization has never pushed into this new space ever before. It's your practice is not a static thing that just reaches a plateau, but then can always grow up and out of it. To usually hit that next rung on the ladder, you have to exert effort to get higher, and that is filled with tension as a result of it.
Yeah, that tension is anything from needing to learn new things, managing more people, figuring out how to be okay with spending more money on a frequent basis. It could be literally anything. And sometimes this requires a little bit of soul searching or mentorship or otherwise. Um, but know that it's normal and it's okay for it to be hard, but it doesn't have to be done alone. It doesn't have to be done alone. And it certainly doesn't have to be done um, it it doesn't have to be done forever,
Yeah.
right? So you don't have to do it forever, and you don't have to do it alone. And I think that that maybe is like some of the scariest parts for some of these is like you feel like it's always going to be like this. Well, it's always going to be like that if you don't maybe make some changes to how you're approaching the problem. And if you're trying to go at it alone, or if you feel like you're working with others, but maybe you're not making the progress that you need, maybe it's time to find some others. You know, you can always switch those things out. And back to lesson number one, sometimes the right decision, sometimes just because you're making the best decision doesn't mean it's the right one. So you can always switch that stuff out. You can always try something new, and just maybe make sure that you're setting great accountability for yourself and you're staying responsible for the outcomes so that you can actually make those decisions for yourself.
Yeah. I think within this, it's okay that it's hard. It makes sense that there's supposed to be growing pains attached to you growing your business. And it's one of the reasons why actually growing your business is important. Because if you're exerting this much effort, if you're just going to show up every single day and your business is going to present a lot of challenges to you, no matter what, you might as well grow and reach your goals of impact and of money and stability. That business is happening for you. And I'll leave with a final thought. That the best businesses, the biggest businesses, just do the fundamentals at scale. They just figure out how to do the fundamentals of their business at a higher volume. At a higher volume. So if you feel like you are struggling or the new shiny big ideas aren't working for you, sometimes it's just going back to the basics and saying, hey, are we doing all the stuff we know how to do already across all the facets of the process in the business? Start there, start at delivering on the fundamentals, and you'll be surprised at how little fancy footwork is needed above and beyond that.
So, look, guys,